Everyone in the auto shop couldn't help but snicker when 13-year-old Jade Harper, a mechanic's daughter, walked in. Dressed in ragged jeans and a hoodie that barely fit, she looked like she didn't belong in such a high-stakes environment. The boss, Mr. Coleman, a sharply dressed man known for solving problems no one else could, issued a challenge. He dared her to fix an engine that had stumped his best engineers. Cameras were rolling. The crew was gathered, all betting on her failure. But when Jade lifted the hood, her eyes narrowed, and what she said next left everyone in the room frozen in disbelief. No one saw it coming. The morning light barely filtered through the dirty windows of Harper's garage, where Jade's father, Charles, had spent over 25 years fixing cars. Jade's hands were already stained from a few hours of helping him earlier. Today was supposed to be for the professionals. Big-shot executives from Vertex Motors, a company known for its top-tier high-performance vehicles, were due for a visit. Charles had warned her to stay out of the way, telling her this was an important day. But Jade had a strange feeling, an undeniable urge telling her to go. Something inside her told her she was meant to be there. As the clock struck 8 a.m., a sleek black SUV pulled up to the shop. Out stepped Mr. Coleman, the legendary troubleshooter for Vertex Motors, wearing polished shoes and an expensive suit. He kept his sunglasses on even though the garage was dimly lit. The entire shop paused. No one spoke. Mr. Coleman wasn't just any boss. He was the one called when no one else could solve a problem. He gave orders that even higher-ups obeyed without question. And today, he brought with him an unsolvable engine from one of Vertex's prototype cars, the kind that hadn't even hit the market yet. The moment he stepped into the garage, he scanned the room with disdain. The shop, with its grease-stained walls and old tools, was beneath him. His team, eager to impress, wheeled in a covered engine block on a platform. When the tarp was pulled away, the mechanics leaned in, intrigued. But within minutes, their expressions turned to confusion. One of them scratched his head, another tried to begin diagnostics, but the computer started blinking with error codes. Mr. Coleman stood with his arms crossed, his face unreadable. Jade watched from the side, unnoticed, until she accidentally knocked over a bucket. The loud noise made everyone turn their head.
Her footsteps echoed in the quiet room, the sound almost ominous. She didn't say a word. She simply moved toward the engine, lifted the hood, and immediately placed her hands on the engine. The cold metal sent a jolt up her arm, but her focus was unwavering. Jade's father had taught her to read engines like stories, and this one was speaking to her. Her eyes scanned the manifold, then darted to a junction near the fuel line. Her brow furrowed. The others watched, waiting for her to touch the wrong part or to give up. But Jade did something no one was prepared for. "This engine isn't broken," she said, her voice calm and steady. "It's made to fail." A stunned silence fell over the garage. Mr. Coleman's smile faded and Charles's mouth hung slightly open. Jade's voice was calm but confident. "The error codes are on a loop. Someone made this engine fail intentionally." Mr. Coleman stepped closer, his voice becoming sharper. "Who told you that?" Jade slowly looked up at him, unfazed by his intensity. "No one," she replied calmly, "but whoever did this wants you to chase after problems that aren't even there." The room stood still. Jade wasn't just guessing. In less than a minute, she had diagnosed the problem that had stumped professionals for hours. But what she was about to reveal next would turn the entire garage upside down. The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity. Mr. Coleman's eyes bored into hers, not out of curiosity, but with disbelief disguised as authority. He stepped so close to her that she could feel his breath. "Are you suggesting that my engineers made a mistake on purpose?" His voice was low, almost threatening. Jade did not flinch. "Not your engineers," she replied softly. "Someone else." Her father, still frozen in place, barely moved. One of the technicians, Marvin, an older man in his 50s, finally spoke up. "Sir, I did notice that the diagnostics kept looping the same failure code, even after resets. It was strange, but I thought it was a glitch." Mr. Coleman shot him a glare that shut him up immediately. Jade walked over to the diagnostic tablet and began tapping through menus. Holding it up for everyone to see, she spoke again. This loop repeats every 91 seconds. It's not a glitch, it's a cover-up. With a few more taps, she bypassed the main interface, revealing a second layer of data that no one had seen. A red alert flashed across the screen. Sabotage detected. The source traced directly back to Vertex HQ. Gasps filled the room. Her father stepped forward, stunned. "Jade, how did you figure that out?" She glanced at him, her voice trembling for the first time. "I reverse-engineered the diagnostic app last summer. I wanted to see how it really worked, not just what it showed." Mr. Coleman's face turned ashen. He grabbed the tablet from her and stared at it in shock, his voice now cracking. "You need to leave, now!" But before anyone could react, a younger man in a Vertex Motors polo shirt appeared at the back of the shop, holding up his phone.
Hale's face drained of color. "That's not possible. You were declared dead." The man's smile faded. "Yet, here I am." Jade could barely comprehend what was happening. The chaos outside, the federal agents, the mysterious man, everything had changed in a split second. He extended his hand to her. "You want answers? You want the truth? Then trust me. The next 24 hours will decide everything." As Jade looked at her father, his silent nod gave her the confidence she needed. Without a second thought, she stepped forward and took his hand. "Let's begin."
It had been an ordinary Thursday morning when Emma Carson, an unassuming archivist at the National Historical Records Office, stumbled upon a file that would alter the course of history. Emma had always loved her job, organizing old government documents, preserving history for future generations, but she never imagined she would be the one to uncover a secret that had been buried for decades. Emma had spent her days cataloging files, making sure that each document was stored properly, safe from time's ravages. It wasn't glamorous work, but it suited her just fine. Her quiet life, with its predictable routines, was exactly what she needed, or so she thought. That day, Emma was tasked with organizing a batch of files from the 1970s. It was a routine assignment, but something about the aged manila folder with a red top secret stamp on the front caught her attention. The file was hidden at the back of a shelf filled with irrelevant documents, never meant to be seen again. She hesitated for a moment, but curiosity got the better of her. She opened the folder. Inside, she found a set of handwritten notes, maps, and official-looking government reports, all about something called Operation Mirage. It wasn't the contents that initially struck Emma as strange, but the sheer secrecy surrounding it. These documents were marked as classified, yet they had somehow ended up in a public office, tucked away among mundane historical files. It didn't make sense. The documents revealed something chilling. Operation Mirage was a covert government project designed to manipulate global politics through controlled military interventions and economic instability. The reports, dated from the late 1960s, detailed how certain world events, wars, economic collapses, and natural disasters had been engineered behind the scenes, orchestrated by a shadow government entity known only as the Collective. Emma could hardly believe what she was reading. The idea that a secret group of individuals had been pulling strings on such a massive scale seemed too fantastical. But the evidence in front of her was irrefutable. The documents included detailed accounts of how certain leaders had been targeted for assassination, how economic recessions were caused to shift markets, and how public opinion was manipulated through media control. One document, however, stood out. It was a letter addressed to President Theodore Grant, who had mysteriously disappeared in 1973 along with all records of his presidency. The letter was from the collective, and it contained an ultimatum: align with their vision or face the consequences. The final line of the letter read, "You will never be allowed to expose the truth or the world will burn." A cold shiver ran down Emma's spine. This wasn't just a conspiracy, it was a global operation spanning decades. The implications were vast, and the more she read, the more her mind raced. But she couldn't just sit on this. She knew that bringing these documents to light could have unimaginable consequences. Yet deep down, she also knew that someone had to expose the truth. As Emma spent more time combing through the files, she realized the project wasn't just about politics. It involved scientific research, military intelligence, and, disturbingly, human experimentation. The documents included references to advanced weaponry and technology far beyond what the public had ever been told. The collective had been working on creating synthetic pandemics, using them as a means to destabilize entire nations. There were mentions of a genetic bioweapon, codenamed Project Blackout, capable of wiping out entire populations without leaving a trace. Emma couldn't believe it. It was like a dystopian nightmare, but the more she read, the more it became clear the collective had been working toward creating a new world order, and they were closer than anyone could have imagined. But the most shocking revelation came when she discovered a file marked Project Nova. This was the collective's ultimate plan, a global reset. The idea was to collapse world economies, trigger a massive global conflict, and then rise from the ashes to establish a new regime. The file contained a list of high-profile individuals and organizations that had been secretly aligned with the collective, including powerful CEOs, military leaders, and even government officials across multiple countries. They had been manipulated into believing they were part of something greater, all while serving as pawns in the collective's grand scheme. Emma knew she couldn't ignore this information any longer. She needed help, but she couldn't trust anyone. She was aware that the moment she exposed this information, her life would be in danger. The collective had eyes everywhere. Anyone who had ever tried to leak information had been silenced. So Emma did what any sensible person would do. She went underground. Using the encryption software that had been buried within the files, she sent copies of everything to a secure server, ensuring the documents would be stored safely. She created a pseudonym and set up encrypted email accounts, leaving a trail that only the most skilled hackers could follow. But she didn't stop there. Emma also contacted an investigative journalist, Caleb Lawson, who had built a reputation for exposing corporate corruption. She trusted him, but she didn't reveal her identity. She only sent him a cryptic message: "The truth you seek is in the files. Find the collective." The moment she pressed send, Emma felt the weight of her decision. She had stepped into something much larger than she had ever imagined. The dangers of this discovery were beyond comprehension, and she wasn't sure she would make it out alive. But she knew she had done the right thing. The world needed to know the truth. Over the next few days, Emma noticed strange things happening around her. She began to feel as though she was being watched. She saw unfamiliar cars parked outside her apartment building. People seemed to be following her. Someone had gotten too close. It was only a matter of time before they came for her. One night, as she walked home from the office, she felt a sharp pain in her side. She staggered, her hand instinctively reaching for her phone, but before she could dial for help, she was grabbed from behind and shoved into an alleyway. It was a man, tall, dark, and wearing a plain suit. His voice was low and calm, but the malice behind his words was unmistakable. "You shouldn't have gotten involved, Emma," he said, his grip tightening. "Now you'll pay the price." Fear coursed through her veins, but Emma was no longer the timid archivist she once was. She had seen the truth, and now there was no turning back. She had one last move to make. She triggered the emergency signal on her phone, sending a GPS location to Caleb. Within moments, she heard the screech of tires. A black SUV pulled up, and men in dark suits rushed out. They fought off her attacker, pulling him into the vehicle and speeding away. Caleb, his face etched with concern, ran to Emma's side, helping her up. He asked, "Are you all right?" She nodded, though her body still trembled. "I'm fine, but we don't have much time. The files, the collective, they're not done yet." In the following weeks, Caleb worked with a team of whistleblowers and hackers to bring the truth to light. They exposed Project Nova in a series of explosive articles revealing the collective's operations to the world. The articles went viral, protests erupted, governments scrambled to respond, and secrets long kept hidden were forced into the open. But even as the world began to react, Emma knew the fight wasn't over. She had just uncovered one chapter of a much larger story. The war for truth was just beginning. And Emma Carson, the archivist who had once been invisible, was now the most wanted person in the world. Hunted by the collective, but also hailed as a hero by those who sought justice.
The sun was just starting to dip behind the skyline, casting an orange glow over the city as Tasha Williams, a quiet librarian with a love for solving puzzles, left work and walked to her car. She had no idea that her ordinary life was about to collide with a dangerous world of crime, power, and secrets. It all began when she found an old, unmarked book tucked behind some shelves. It was weathered, the leather cover cracked, and the pages were yellowed with age. But what caught her attention was a small note inside the front cover, written in a cipher that she immediately recognized from a past college class. Tasha had always had a knack for cracking codes. Her curiosity got the better of her, and she set to work on deciphering the strange message. What she uncovered was far beyond anything she could have imagined. The book contained hidden instructions for a secret money laundering operation run by one of the most notorious crime syndicates in the country, the Blackthorn Cartel. The details were chilling. Not only were they laundering money, but they were also using the city's largest charity organization as a front. Names, dates, and locations were all listed.